Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey. I am so excited to be here with you. We are so excited to be here with you. I can't even tell you, my friend, how much I have missed you. I was down and out last week with illness, and many of you may be going through the same thing. And so Alex and I are going to jump in and really go deep on creating from being. We talk to you all the time about identity and why it's so important and not being caught in the mechanics, but we're going to reiterate and bring you the breakthroughs that we're having because we really want to share what this journey is like. And when you talk about creating from being, it can feel very philosophical. It can feel esoterical, like, what does that mean? How do you get practical with creating from being? Do I just sit on a pillow and watch the clouds go by? Like, what about this taking action thing, right? And so we're going to go deep. We're going to talk to you about this. So, yeah, we're so glad you're here.
Well, and Carol, as you said there, right? Like we're so much used to the doing, right? Like a lot of times it's like, yeah, we're gonna, do the do be have, right? Like I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna have that, sorry, and then I'll be this, right? So I messed that up.
Yeah.
It's I'm gonna
Have
do this,
have do
I'll have
be. I
that.
have to have stuff in order to do stuff in order to be somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our program, right, our automatic is to do things. I was meeting with a friend of mine the other night, and we were like setting the intention of like meeting with a group of leaders for the team leadership that we are leading in a couple of weeks. And right off the bat, it was like we went to the mechanic, right? It was like, okay, well, we want to talk about this, we want to talk about that. It was like, hold on, pause, wait a second, right? It's so funny how the automatic just goes to like, okay, what are
Yeah.
we going to do here to set this up? And it was like, hold
Yeah.
on, like it's a beautiful example of where we have to go, wait a second, pause. We got to shift from the automatic of the doing and like, okay, let's go shift to the being now. Like go back
Mhm.
to intention. We've talked a lot about that in the last couple, episodes, and we had
Yeah.
Lorna on, and then you and I, Carol, talked a lot about that more. But we want to dive deeper because I know Carol's experienced several moments of really feeling that beingness, and I will say the same thing myself as well. And
Yeah.
you feel it internally, right? When you're showing
Mhm.
up, when you lead by the being versus just like it's almost like the head shows up with the to-do list and it's like da, 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 da,
Yeah.
versus like fully embodying and like that's what I say being, right? Because we're human
Yeah.
beings of how we actually show up, and people respond differently. I think that's the power, right, Carol? Like
Yeah.
when people can feel that we're showing up in our beingness, people respond, they react,
It changes
and
everything.
like you said, it changes everything. So Carol, I'd love for you to share a little bit like these moments of the last, I mean, I know it happened
Yeah.
last week and it's been several weeks, just with sort of what you've been experiencing with your health, where you've
Yeah.
really been able to fully experience, like, okay, and be like, all right, this is the being in motion, and wanting to really ensure our listeners like really get this when we
Yeah.
are showing up as leaders, right? Like in all areas of our lives.
Right now that I have going on a worthy book club that I'm hosting for Jamie Kern Lima's book, Worthy. By the way, if you're interested, it's designed where you can jump in anytime. Please just email me or DM me after this. You can text us right
Oh,
directly from the podcast on Apple Podcast, or is it also set up for
On
Spotify and
Spotify.
all of
Yep.
them?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
just send a text. It's free, it's no sales, it's connection, it's a powerful group. And the mission and intention there is to really go deep on our worthiness journeys. And so this has been very present on my mind. And it's so interesting what you mentioned about the meeting the other night, because the mind wants to go to strategy, wants to go
Mhm.
to solution, it wants to go to the how, which is what we refer to when we refer to mechanics, right? It wants to go to, oh, I want this strategy. And so often clients will reach out to me and ask for strategy, right? And, there is strategy involved for sure. And it's powerful and it's important. But if we put the strategy in front of the beingness, it's when we get ourselves into trouble because we're going to be on that start stop cycle. We're going to be spinning. And that's the subconscious that's there with our limiting beliefs wired in, operating while we're moving forward in strategy. So, the advantage of going into your identity, your worthiness, your beingness is that you're actually taking action to work through those limiting beliefs and to be in the energy of the goals and dreams that you have, right? So, strategy is what our brains want to go to. And I was really thinking about it with my health conditions and with the obligations and responsibilities I have. Because when you're acting in integrity, and that's a key value for me, then you're fulfilling the commitments that you've made. Also, taking radical responsibility for creating the reality that you want to create. I take radical responsibility for that. The reality I'm living right now is because of the way I have been thinking, feeling, believing, right? So when when my health has been affected, I was like, what does this mean practically? Like, I'm going on the journey of going deeper into my worthiness, into who I am and what that means for me. But where does this action piece fit into that? How does that happen? And here's the cool part. This is the exciting part. So, Alex, you mentioned the have, do, be model. This is what we're taught in culture. We're taught we have to have things in order to do things, in order to be somebody. It's putting the strategy first, it's putting the doing first, it's pushing, it's hustling, it's grinding, it's moving towards burnout and overwhelm, and it's forcing issues, right? And the way to turn that around is to go into a be, do, have model. So when you want to think about creating from being, you're actually doing out of that. But the difference is when you put your worthiness first, when you put your value and what's important to you and who you are first, then the doing flows from that. The action just happens. It happens with flow and ease. It happens without forcing it. It happens with joy and delight in your heart. And it happens with that energy of you being who you want to be to attract the things to you that you're actually going for. And this has been something I've known, something I've operated by, but it's really been going taking me on a much deeper level of this, and I'm experiencing the results of it. I'm experiencing the flow and ease of the journey and the action, the things that I really want to go for and desire to go for and are meaningful to me. So it's been really exciting.
And something that was coming through my mind, Carol, and I think this is really what you're also driving home is it actually makes things easier
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
is so easy to show up with an agenda, right? And then like I've got this agenda, we got da, 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 and then you show up disconnected almost, right? Because you're not even, right, I'm gonna say connected because being
Yeah.
connected is a way of being.
Mhm.
Versus if you're showing up with that again, the leading with the mechanic piece, people will receive that and they won't feel like you're connected. And
Yeah.
this is something that I really um, building up the default of being reminded that everybody wants to feel seen, and be heard. And
Yeah.
when you show up with this agenda, especially if you're someone who's more of a got that driver type personality, very results driven, like you and I, and most likely many of you that are listening to this, right?
Yeah.
People sense that and they don't feel connected. And so you have to work harder to then enroll people, get the buy-in to
Mhm.
create the result you're creating because
Yeah.
you're leading from the yes
From the
result without actually
disconnection. Yeah.
yeah connecting on that human level
Yeah.
first. But when you can show up and be committed to okay, my beingness of being connected,
Yeah.
being in generosity, being you know vulnerable, authentic,
Yeah.
like you're setting that intention and we know, right? Like it's the deciding in
Yeah.
advance, I'm going to show up connected, loving, vulnerable, authentic. You've
Yeah.
decided in advance, you've communicated even to your brain that, hey, this is how I'm going to show up. And just as you said, Carol, guess what? From the decisions we make, right? That'll impact the actions we take, which is the results we then generate. So
Yeah.
we decide in advance we want to show up this way. Now we're showing up in this way. We're gonna now take action on creating obviously that other result.
Yeah.
So,
And
but that result, right?
that
And it's
action just flows. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I noticed, like even in my experience this week too. As soon as we shifted the focus into what is the intention, what would we like to create in this meeting, and
Yeah.
base all like, and literally before I went online, it was like, I get to be, as I said, they're connected, loving, authentic, vulnerable.
Yeah.
I showed up that way and I created that. And the results were beautiful. And
Yeah.
that's what, and I understand like Carol and I mean, we've been doing this work for years and we're always experiencing it, right? Because we're
Mhm.
talking about the automation. Like this is
Yeah.
how we were raised, what we see around us and how, the 99% operate.
Yeah.
So it's building the muscle of shifting the way that you are showing up, of starting with that intention
Mhm.
and the being and
Yeah.
just practicing it over and over and over again and just generally having that awareness,
Wiring
right?
it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have repeated on here often the example of the baby in the crib, where we don't look at a baby in a crib and go, I'm sorry, you don't have any value yet. You're not doing anything. And the reason to me that example is so incredibly powerful is because it literally reminds me that we know inherently that we arrive on this earth with value. And yet, all these messages, like you were just saying along the way, begin to be incorporated as lies, as limits, where we don't recognize our value anymore. We don't realize that we're more than enough and that what we need for this life we have within us. And really looking at that worthiness factor. I mean, it's one of the reasons I really am loving the book Worthy. And shout out to you, Jamie Kern Lima. This is really just a divine book in my mind. I mean, it's incredible. But going through the first chapter of the difference between our worthiness and our confidence, where the confidence comes more from the doing, but the worthiness is that inherent knowing that we arrived on this planet as valuable beings with what we need to live a wonderful, beautiful life inherent within us. And it's the work you and I do as coaches. It's the work I know that we absolutely love doing is empowering you to know who you really are and why it matters and that you matter. And, to bring in those reminders that it's always been that way. It's just us having to rediscover it and to recognize those limits that are in there saying, you're not enough. You're not enough. And then, like you were saying, I'm recovering from bronchitis, so bear with me. A couple of little coughs here. But like you were saying, Alex, we when we take that step back into what's our intention here, that goes back to us knowing who we are, knowing that we're powerful leaders, knowing that we're capable, knowing that we have what we are going to use already inside of us there, and then showing up with that intention, with the joy intention, with the mission at hand, with the serving. It's been really incredible. And going for me from that chapter one, from the self worth to the difference between self-worth and self-confidence, into chapter two, Jamie deals with rejection. Now, this one was beautiful for me because it completely reframes that rejection that we've received in this life. And I'm willing to bet that we've all received it. I haven't met anybody yet, well, I'll say that in my limited perspective, who has not experienced some sort of rejection or abandonment. And when you're able to turn that around and reshift it and directly start dealing with those limiting beliefs that come up around it, completely reframe it, to me, that's really stepping into creating from being, from recognizing who you are and how valuable you are, and what a treasure you are. And we're walking the walk, right? Because it's a journey for us too, because those same limits that come up for you come up for us as well. They're wired in. And walking that journey of practice, 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 like you were saying, the repetition is where it's just like magic unfolds. Intentions alone are magical. They're so incredibly powerful. And to be able to step back and know that you're deserving and you're worthy of that intention, and that it's going to enable you to serve people in a way that is meaningful to you and that has impact, is what we as female leaders take a stand for and are committed to. So, yeah.
Well, and going back to the talking even specifically about rejection, right? A lot of work, right, Carol, when we're working with our clients and there's certain words that come up that tend to maybe trigger clients, or
Yeah.
it's always getting to like, what does that look like? How do you define that? Now, you and I, we hear the word rejection, and all of a sudden we have like this negative, right? We're most likely have some sort of like negative association or like a negative definition. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, you have the power to create any definition you want. And most likely the definition you're giving to that term, and this goes for any term that you're noticing could be triggering or creating some sort of angst or something right inside of you, you have the power to change the definition. You have the
Mm,
power to write it how you want to write it, right? So,
yeah.
I've heard some people talk about like, rejection equals redirection, and you know, or it's not right now, or those kind of things, and
Yeah.
just understanding like you can either attach a meaning to the word or you can unattach a meaning. And
Yeah.
you, as a leader, have a choice. You can choose to see rejection as a very negative thing and have it mean something about you, right? Identity,
Mhm.
as you said, Carol. Or you can use it as information. Here's the thing, you're not going to have that information unless you take that action step to
Yeah.
make the offer, make the ask. And it comes down to just building out the muscle. The more
Mhm.
that you can be unattached and stay neutral to whatever the request may be, it is so much easier to move forward. But how
Yeah.
many of you out there listening get rejected and then shut down because it's like, right. And your brain's just going to go to all the
Right.
negative places. And so again, when you really understand this, and I think that's what's the power of the work that Carol and I have done on ourselves and with our clients is really understanding the power that we actually have when we have this information. So
Yeah.
if rejection is happen to be a term that does sort of like
Trigger
um
you. Yeah.
yeah, trigger you and not make you feel really good. My invitation is to look at, okay, what are you allowing that to mean about you? Because really it's not about you, right? We
Right.
make it about ourselves because we're ego driven, right?
Yeah.
But it's really not about you. And when you can like, and this is the internal, like when you're an entrepreneur, when you're enrolling, I mean, to anything, right? Whether
Yeah.
when I was a director enrolling teachers to try a new education tool with their classroom, to enrolling parents, to also trying like life is an enrollment game. We're
Yeah.
always enrolling, right? You're either
Yeah.
being enrolled or you're enrolling. And, even for your children or your partners or your friends to do something, we're always putting ourselves out there to
Yeah.
enroll people into something. Like, and so, yes, we're always
You
putting
want to have
ourselves in situations.
peanut butter and jelly for lunch today, or do you want to
Yeah.
have a yogurt? Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it might
Like,
be, right?
like we can choose for it to be fun because we're like, okay, we're going to
Yeah.
enroll to get them on our side, or is it right? And it's just, I know I'm making light of this and I know I'm making joy out of this because that again, that's a choice that we choose. We can either choose to have fun with this and kind of make it a game in a way and celebrate the information you're collecting,
Yeah.
or you get that rejection and then you go brew yourself. And I've been there, right? Like you get
Right.
one rejection and it's like it's the end of the world. And when you can embody your worthiness, and I think that's what really when Jamie Lima was driving home in that point is that
Yeah.
it's part of life and it's part of the process, right? Like as much as we
Right.
would love for every single person we ever ask to do something to say yes, it's just it's just not always necessarily maybe going to be the case, right? Or again, not right now.
And I
And
love the way she says that one of the reframes she gives is that rejection is God's protection.
yeah,
She also said that rejection can be where a person isn't meant to be a part of your
yeah,
destiny. I mean,
yeah.
she gives some amazing reframes directly into, what you're saying, where it's so powerful and important that we be able to choose. I love that.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, right? Like when you're clear on your being and your intention of what you're showing up and how you're showing up, then because you're going to take an action step and you might not get the exact response you're looking for at that moment. When you are embedded in your beingness, like whether it is like, let's say
Yeah.
connected, then you can redirect, right? When you redirect because you know who you want to be connected, you know what your intention is, the vision that you're after, and you redirect and you stay committed to the vision.
Yeah.
And
The
that,
why,
yeah. Yeah.
you
And
know?
we've had a couple episodes in the last couple of weeks that we've driven home, right? Lorna was here talking about the mission.
Yeah.
Carly and I talked about vision also a few episodes ago. And we've talked before about this. And yes, it always comes back to these things because they're not the automatics.
Right.
You
Right.
get to build that to become automatic of like
I
finding
love
yourself
that.
being caught up in the mechanic. You said this before,
Mhm.
Carol, like being caught up in the mechanic
Yeah. In the
because,
operations and the strategy and
yeah, yeah.
uh, mhm.
And, taking a second to like, okay, whoa, acknowledge what's going on, acknowledge
Yeah.
the space that you're in, and then like, okay, right, intention over mechanism. Like this is definitely like a muscle that
This
I
is
mean,
female leadership. This is really a definition of leaning into really developing your leadership and developing through that the ability to create the reality that you want to create. And you mentioned something important. You mentioned ego. And this is another thing that I have discovered is that so much of what we think is or has been painted for us is is not the truth, and that the truth or the way of having the full abundant life that we absolutely deserve is so counterintuitive. And one of the most counterintuitive things for me, having grown up in a religious culture, maybe you have grown up in a religious culture, was this idea that, I had to earn my goodness and I had to always be in a perfectionistic mode. And then the ego comes in and takes over. And I thought if I paid attention to myself, if I concentrated on my worthiness and my value, then I would become a very selfish being. But
Mm,
what is
mm,
counterintuitive, what I've discovered is the exact opposite is true. And it's by not recognizing our value that we're operating from a place of scarcity and shortage and using all these external means, the doing, to fill these gaps of our needs, of our approval, of our desires. Are we worthy of these things? And they're false fillers. Like they're temporary. They're in the moment. They satiate in the moment, like having a great margarita, for example. But is it going to build the life you love? No, it's not. It's going to be you having the self-care, having understanding that you're valuable, that you're worthy, coming from that place of being, knowing who you are and that you're a treasure and that all of you, the full authentic you, every part of you is your purpose. And that actually causes the ego to diminish. So amazing.
well, the ego is about that result, right? That doing piece.
Mm,
And versus that being piece is the opposite there.
yeah.
And as you're talking, Carol, it's like it I still remember the very first time I flew with Abby, and the flight attendant came up and said, "Don't forget, did the whole oxygen mask first." And
Yeah.
we could hear that over and over and over and over again as many times. But I feel like the very first time that you hear it directly, when
Hmm.
the person went right, when they come right to you and they walk through the spiel, and it's like all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how many times I heard it before, but now because you're talking directly to me, and this
Yeah.
is the thing, listener, we're talking directly to you. They spoke right directly to me. It finally hit me. If I do not put my oxygen mask on first,
Yeah.
then I'm unable to help my daughter.
Yeah.
That's why I need to put it on first so
Mm.
that I now am in the position that I can help her. But
Right.
how many times over and over again we yeah, it's like the last
Crystallizes
thing.
it. It
Yeah.
crystallizes. It's
Yeah.
such a real life example because if you're sitting there passed out in the seat, who's going to help your daughter? Right. And so when talking about the self-care actually diminishing the ego, that's a great example. It's actually when we fill up our cups. That's another common proverbial statement that people make. That, if you're if you pick up a teacup and then you're like, here, have some tea, and it's empty, you know, wow, okay, thanks. That really appreciate that, right? And you're scraping the bottom of the cup, so to speak, right? Who are you really serving? And when you're filling it up, you're not only serving yourself, but you're serving everybody around you too. And even without the action step, there is something. I was being funny in the beginning about, okay, creating from being, am I just, eating my curds and whey, like the fairy tale? Um, what is that little Miss Muff? No, wait, I can't remember it right now. I'm going blank. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, maybe you'll get the reference. It's that in some ways, yes, we are actually creating the space to sit on a pillow and watch the clouds go by. And this can take all kinds of forms. It can take the form of you meditating. It can take the form of your brain priming that we teach for the rewiring. It can take the form of journaling, can take the form of, having great self-care, getting a massage. But what I've discovered is that when you create that space, creativity flows. The solutions come. They just are intuitive hits. And you're like, oh, yeah, opportunities open up. And then you're able to set those intentions with clarity because you have clarity on your vision and on the things that you are intentionally creating in this life. So there is that aspect that is very important to create the space around yourself that you need personally for this journey of being, for this journey of understanding your true worth and value, and all that that unleashes when it happens. So, yeah, that's an important part. And then again, the action flows out of that.
So I know we're about to wrap up here, Carol, and I know that we always like to give an action step for our listeners. So I'd love to share something that shifted for me. Maybe it's about a year ago that'll help the listener actually be able to apply what we're speaking about today. So it was, yeah, like I said, I think about a year ago, I was sitting down like in the morning, setting my intention for the day, like going through what I was up to for the day. And I caught myself, right? Because I realized, whoa, I'm all in the doing. Here are all the things I get to do today. And so, right, because of the brain priming, everything hit me. I was like, wait a second, where is my being? If we talk about be, do, have, if we talk about it all starts with being, the beingness is missing from here.
Yeah.
So what I did was, and right, and this is where we drive home the whole space to even just create this for yourself to do this, right? To
Yeah.
do it, right? To create this was I looked through my day and I asked myself in the different sections of the day, like, who do I get to be in these moments? So, for example, on my coaching calls, who do I get to be? And so
Yeah.
so I kind of divided my day into two, where I had like, okay, sort of the schedule, what was going on. And then right beside it, I wrote like, I get to be, and I wrote down the ways of being
Mm.
next to all of the things that were going throughout my day.
I love that.
Well, oh my goodness,
Wow.
things have completely shifted. We said it
Wow.
earlier. Things become so much easier
Yeah.
because no longer am I showing up like even with coaching calls and needing to take like 100,000 notes. I show up
Mm.
connected. I show up interruptive. I show up loving. And
Mm.
even just again saying that intention, I actually need to take less notes now because
Mm.
I'm fully connected. I'm hearing, I'm
You're
catching
present.
way more.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what my clients are sharing than I maybe have done in the past. And part of
Mm.
that comes with experience as well, right? But I
Yeah.
tremendously noticed this shift
Wow.
even at nighttime, with my kids. The declaration was to be connected and joyful and, have fun together. And
Yes.
so in those moments, right, when, kids are tired, it's long, it's, the time just, between after dinner, before bath time, I go back to my intention. Who do I get to be? And I just start putting music on. I just start dancing. I start to be silly because I'm leading by the being. And so when you can set yourself up in the day that way, going through your day, right? Going through, of course, the things that you do want to accomplish,
Yeah.
when you can get grounded in the being piece, you will notice a massive, tremendous shift
Wow.
in how you're showing up and how your day unfolds and unravels. And so that is my invitation to listeners today is to perhaps, create an extra minute or two to just
Yeah.
ask yourself, who do I get to be in these moments
Yeah.
so that you can lead from those places throughout your day?
I love that. That would be my call to action right alongside you is to create the space, invest in yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
just literally taking the action of investing in yourself, the time to do this work and to go deep on your being journey, your worthiness is something that also unlocks magic alongside what you're saying. And I love that exercise. It's a beautiful exercise. And so create that space for yourself. You're worth it. And
I was just
thank you
about to say,
for
like, kind of
being
like,
here.
you are worthy. You are
Yeah.
worthy.
Yeah. You matter. Your voice is important in this world. Who you are as a human being, your energy is meant to be. You are meant to have an impact in this world, and you have one not only on yourself, but all around you. And even if you are alone right now, you are still impacting people in the transactions that you have, in the things that you do. And I just am so excited that we're talking about this today. It's been amazing. Um, Alex Leanne, just I want to reiterate to you guys that there is a Worthy Book Club going on. It's designed, even though we're going into chapter 3 right now this week. I'm not sure when this episode will air, probably in a week or two here, but the important thing to know is you can come in at any time, and there are replays available. It's a safe, connected, supported community where we're all committed to going deeper on our worthiness journeys together. So I just want to invite you in. Again, it's completely free, and it's something that may really benefit you in your life right now. And Alex Leanne is doing some amazing work, which I know you'll talk about, in helping teens to understand their worthiness. And if you haven't heard yet, go listen to our episode with Tina, a couple of episodes back, about this, about the work, the leadership work. Also, I believe the one with Denise and Wendy, right?
Yep.
Is another one that you are going to want to listen to if you have a teen that you really want to see build their worthiness. Listen, jump in, don't wait. This is amazing work that's being done right now. So,
And the brain development, right, when at the ages between 13 and 17 is so impactful. And so to be able to provide the leadership skills, the confidence, the self-worth, and the emotional intelligence skills as preparing teens for their young adult life is absolutely powerful. And also be able to work with parents in that phase of life, being a parent
yeah.
in that phase, is just, I mean, there's just nothing like it to be able to support parents and their teenagers really thrive at such an important and, pinnacle part of life that really does impact their adulthood and decisions that they'll make
Yeah,
later
it's
on. So
developing their leadership. And,
yeah.
we know that you are leaders here in our audience. And this is something that is just the ideal place for you to be able to jump in and develop that in your teen, as well as be able to bring your own wisdom and support into this journey. It's really amazing. So we are so excited to see you again next week and to talk to you about amazing things and about going really deep on your journey. Just know who you are. Walk through this week, just like knowing that you are worthy. Repeat it to yourself. Repeat that you are deserving and that you are an amazing leader in this world. And we're so excited to see you again next week. Ciao for now.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.